Hey, what's up, guys? This is Frank the Frankly Collecting, and I wanted to address yet again this CGC trading card news of their merger with the sports card division, CSG, and the biggest part of this news, which is the new label and grading scale. So I've actually got the article up here on my screen share, and I wanted to actually go through the primary points of this news and give you sort of my evolving opinion on this, because it has changed since my last video. Some of y'all have seen my last video where I actually was really upset, not so much about the new grading scale. I actually like the new grading scale a lot. I think it simplifies things. I understand where CGC is coming from, trying to compete with PSA and kind of agreeing with them a little bit about the 10 being more attractive than the 9.5 in the larger market. My main gripe in my last video was really about the blue label, and my thinking about the label has been changing as I've been following them a few days after this announcement on Instagram and thinking about it and looking at it a few more times. So let's go through and talk about this and where I have really changed my mind and really very positive about this new this news around CGC's new label and grading system, and where I think is still room for improvement and where there is kind of risk going forward. So you can see here what I think is the biggest news so far is that there's going to be a new label on here. So you can see the Pokemon Illustrator and this LeBron James card. The biggest thing that's different, I think, is the missing blue. You know, the initial label was that classic blue label that was just about the exact same design and look of the CGC comic book label. And they did it for the trading cards, and they brought the same label to their video games. I would guess the same label was coming for their VHS tapes. And that for me was the biggest thing that hit first, and what gave me an initially very negative reaction to this news was, you know, what are they doing with this lack of trust in the label? Because if they're getting rid of it for the trading cards, why wouldn't we also maybe see a different label for the video games, for other collecting categories? Because to me, the whole point of the label, what I really didn't like was that you were losing that very signature look of CGC, which is their brand. And I'm a fanboy of CGC. You know, everyone knows that blue label from the comic books. That's why I liked them for the trading cards. I thought, this is awesome. You know, it's going to be just like the comics, and they're really big in the comic world. And now they're going to become huge in the graded trading cards world, and there's just going to be all this uniformity across their categories, which is awesome. You know, so I can have my CGC trading cards, my comic books, my CGC video games, and I can just have the same look across the board, and I can just be, you know, just have this one stop for everything I collect, and they'll have this unified label. So for me, just the fact that that blue is gone, that's all I needed to really be negative. But, you know, and to me, that still remains the biggest downside. I actually think these labels look pretty nice. They are very clean. You can see the information very clearly. The black and white is nice. There's like a slight, very subtle fade, like a kind of a black ink fade going on the left side with some of the information. And the CGC brand is still there up in the top left, and it's spelled out in the top right. I think it looks really nice. I don't know if the labels are physically smaller, but they appear to be smaller just from the way everything is coming together. And I like that. I do think the CGC blue label on the past trading card label was too big. So I like that overall. My biggest thing, again, is just that blue. You know, could they have gotten a little more blue into the label somehow, even if it's more subtle than it used to be, to help bring that branding of the labels together? Because here's the thing, you know, if they're going to change the blue because it doesn't go with some cards that aren't blue, why wouldn't they do that with video games? Why not just have a neutral label for video games? Why not have a neutral label for the comic books? Because the blue label doesn't go with absolutely every color in comic books or in video games either. So is that a slippery slope? Are we going to see sort of a debranding of this color across the board? Because to me, it just feels like a slippery slope. I don't understand how that's a thing for trading cards, but not for comics and for video games. So that argument, I don't really buy. I think that it's just they wanted something more neutral because in the trading card world, they're trying to appeal to a more mass audience. In comic books, they can get away with the blue label because they're like the biggest name, but not so in the trading cards. So they feel like they felt like they had to make this move, but it does feel awkward not having that blue next to their other labels with their other collecting categories, okay? So it's really just the blue color that I am upset about, but I have to admit, knowing that blue's gone, what am I going to do about it? I'm not going to just keep griping every day. I don't think they're going to do a turnaround on this personally. I think showing these multiple in social media posts, I feel like this is a move they feel they need to make because they know they have those people like me who are dedicated, but I don't think maybe it's enough and they need to make this move to reach a wider market. So I think these labels look very nice overall. Again, here's a picture. You now have the labels with the blue labels of the other categories. I think it's a bit awkward. Are we going to see a more neutral label with these other categories? I don't know. It feels weird. Like, why either have them all be neutral and don't just pick trading cards to not have the blue label. Now, the pristine label, I think, is also really, really nice. Again, the only thing that I have to say about it is I wish it had more of that blue in it. I have some CGC traded cards, and I think I'm going to do a separate video where I kind of show off some of my favorite, now old vintage blue label CGC cards that I have in my own personal collection. I have some pristines. I have, I think, 1 or 2 perfects. I think just 1 perfect card. I have to double check on that. But the yellow pops really nice as the font on those blue labels. I'm actually not crazy about just the way everything comes together on the blue label. I like that it matches other categories in the brand. But the yellow really does look nice in the pristine and perfect labels. And so I like seeing the gold here. I like seeing the gold lettering. Again, I would like to have seen that again incorporated with the blue. But I'll say this is the only real thing I'll say about the grading scale. For me, again, it was really more about the label color, just the kind of branding. I actually really like the move to this grading scale where it is more 10 based, where you're looking for just the Gem Mint 10s now, instead of thinking about the Gem Mint 9.5s versus a PSA 10 or versus a CGC Pristine 10 versus a Perfect 10. I like the Perfect 10s. Again, I have 1 or 2 CGC Perfect 10s. But I actually think this is a simpler system. You got your Gem Mint 10. I'm going to be happy to submit a lot of my 9.5s for reholdering, or just knowing I can do that whenever I want in the future if I ever plan to sell the card or just want to upgrade it to the new case and label. I'm glad I have that option. But I do think that the Pristine 10s here just look nice. And I think it's simpler than having this with the Perfect 10s. I like, in my mind, I can think I'm looking at Gem Mint 10s, and I'm also looking out for Pristine 10s. And I'm not crazy about there still being a 9.5 in there. I kind of would like, ultimately, I think that might overcomplicate it a bit. I think it would be disappointing to get a 9.5 Mint Plus versus just a Gem Mint 10, and that's even a downgrade from the old 9.5 Gem Mint. So I think it overly complicates it. I think they could have gotten away with not even just having that extra complicating factor, and maybe we'll lose it at some point in the future. Okay, that's all I wanted to update about this. I'm going to be continuing to follow this. Y'all know I like CGC a lot. A lot of my videos show that I have CGC cards, that I get them in the mail, that I like to grade with CGC, and I'm going to continue to do so. I was a little bit put off about this blue label. I like the new label. I have questions about how it's, again, what are they going to do about the video game blue label? Are they going to make that one more neutral? Are they going to revamp the video game one? How are they going to keep solidarity amongst all these categories now if they're showing a lack of faith in the blue label for one category? That, for me, complicates the future of the label for other categories, but that's just a little bit of speculation on my part as well. Something to consider. For right now, I am planning on reholdering some cards. I actually have some other thoughts about some reholdering strategies, or maybe some cases where you might actually want to crack the case rather than reholdering and trying to submit for a new grade in the case that they're 9.5. So I'm going to save that for another video. I want to know what y'all think about the CGC news, this revamp of their label and their grading scale, down in the comments below. I am ultimately on board. I'm positive. I'm trying to be positive in their Instagram posts and everything. And I just, I was also kind of negative when the news came out and just was like, oh, I'm going to miss this blue label. I don't know about this new black and white label. I called it lifeless in a previous video, but when I'm looking at it a little bit more. I actually think that it's a lot cleaner. It allows the card to stand out more. and the label's not so distracting. I kind of like that it is almost on the side, when you're looking at the whole graded card in its entirety. So my opinion of it is changing. I think that a lot of people just don't like how unfamiliar it now is. And I think just like when CGC first came to the market to be a trading card company, it was very new. I think this is going to be resetting it, being very new again. But I think people are going to grow to be familiar with it. I think there's going to be some strengths and positives to the new system, and I'm excited about what the future holds for CGC trading cards, especially as someone who's going to be buying CGC trading cards and grading with them my trading cards. All right, let me know what y'all thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time. Thank you.